The cargo bay smelled like burnt metal. And desperation, Sierra's claws scraped against the station floor as she stood before the merchant's desk, her wings folded tight against her scaled body. 3 cycles of hauling toxic containers, moving shipments that would poison most species, and this is what? She got nothing. You damaged my goods, Halleck said, his multiple eyes blinking in sequence. The Centauran merchant leaned back in his chair, his skin shifting through smug colors. According to station law, you owe me compensation. That's a lie. Sierra's voice cracked. She hated how weak she sounded, but her children hadn't eaten in 2 days. I moved everything exactly as ordered. The manifests are clean. I checked them myself. Are you calling me a liar? Halleck's voice turned cold. You're a Draken. Your kind barely understands basic commerce. Why would anyone believe you over me? Sierra felt her throat tighten. She was Draken, yes. Her people were strong, could breathe fire, could survive in environments that would kill most species, but in the galactic community, they were seen as primitive, good for heavy labor and nothing else. Nobody cared what happened to them. Please. The word tasted like ash in her mouth. I only need my wages. My children haven't eaten. They're hungry. I just need what you owe me. Halleck laughed. It was a wet, bubbling sound. Your breeding problems are my concern. You're dismissed, and if you continue to harass me, I'll call security and have you banned from the station. Sierra's legs felt weak. She left her children waiting near the loading docks, 4 little ones, their scales dull from malnutrition, their eyes too big in their thin faces. She promised them food. Today she promised, I worked for you. She said, her voice barely above a whisper. 3 full cycles, hazardous materials. You saw me do it. You know I did it right. Get out. Halleck waved a dismissive appendage. Before I decide, you owe me even more. Owen Blake had been loading freight containers onto a hover platform when he heard the Draken's voice. He'd been on Antares 7 for 6 months now, working whatever jobs paid enough to keep moving. Earth colonies felt too small, too settled. Out here he could work with his hands and not think too much about the past. But that voice stopped him. It wasn't angry. It was broken. That he looked up and saw her. The Draken woman was tall, maybe 7 ft, with dark green scales that should have gleamed but looked dusty and worn. Her wings were folded so tight against her back that it looked painful. She was begging. Owen set down the container he was carrying and walked closer. Through the merchant's open office door he could see the whole scene, the Centauran behind the desk looked pleased with himself. The Draken looked like she was about to collapse. Please, she said again. My children. Something hot and familiar kindled in Owen's chest. He'd seen this before. Different planets, different species, same story. The powerful taking from the powerless because they could, because nobody would stop them. But he glanced toward the loading docks and saw them. 4 small Drakens huddled together near support pillar. Kids, babies really. Their scales were the lighter green of youth, and they were so thin. One of them was crying silently, tears running down her small snout. Owen had never been good at walking away from things like this. That he moved to the office entrance. Excuse me. Halleck looked up annoyed. What? I'm Buse. I couldn't help but overhear. Owen said, keeping his voice level. You mentioned damaged goods. Can I see the damage reports? Who are you? Halleck's Eyes narrowed, another laborer thinking. They matter, I work in the cargo bay. I log shipments, if there was damage. There should be documentation, Owen. Stepped inside the office. Station. Regulations require it, Sierra turned to. Look at him, her eyes were golden. Reptilian and full of confused hope. She didn't speak, probably afraid to. Hope that Holix's skin flushed in. Irritated purple, this doesn't concern. You human, your species should learn to mind their own business, station. Regulations concern everyone who works. Here, Owen said. He walked to Holix's desk and gestured to the computer. Terminal, the damage reports I'd like to see them. You have no authority. Here, no I don't, but the station administration does, and they take falsified damage claims seriously. Owen met Holix's gaze without blinking. So let's see the reports, unless they don't exist. Holix's colors shifted rapidly, a sign of agitation among Centaurans. You dare accuse me of fraud? I'm asking to see documentation. That's not an accusation. That's just good business practice. Owen's voice stayed calm, but his jaw was tight. She worked for 3 cycles. She deserves to be paid. Show me why she shouldn't be. The Centauran stood, his body swelling with indignation. I've had enough of this. Security, too large. Aliens enter the office. Owen recognized them as enforcers, hired muscle that wealthy merchants kept around to handle problems. They were both Kralix heavy gravity worlders with thick armor, plating and bad attitudes. Remove this human from my office, Holix ordered. He's harassing me. The enforcers moved toward Owen. Each one was at least 300 lb of muscle and natural armor. They looked at him like he was already broken. Owen didn't move. He looked at Sierra instead. How much does he owe you? Her voice was small. 1,500 credits. That's her wage for 3 cycles of hazardous work. Owen's voice was quiet, but something in it made Sierra's spine straighten. That's all you're asking for? She nodded. Oh. Looked back at Holix. The merchant was smiling now, confident. His enforcers were in position. This was over. I'm going to give you one chance, Owen said. Pay her the 1,500 credits plus another 500 for the delay and the disrespect. Do it now and we all walk away. Holix laughed. So did his enforcers. Or what human you'll fight? My security. You're barely 5 and 1/2 ft tall. You're soft, weak. Your species is nothing out here. Owen was quiet for a moment, then he smiled. It wasn't a friendly smile. Yeah, he said softly. That's what everyone thinks. He looked at the enforcers. Last chance to walk away, guys. This doesn't have to get ugly. The first enforcer reached for him. Owen moved. The first enforcer's armored hand came down like a hammer. Owen stepped inside the swing, too close for the impact to have full power. Blow still caught his shoulder and sent pain shooting down his arm, but he'd felt worse, much worse, that he drove his elbow into the soft joint where the Kralix arm connected to his body. The enforcer grunted in surprise, not pain. Not yet, but surprise. Humans weren't supposed to fight back. The second enforcer grabbed Owen from behind, massive arms wrapping around his chest in a crushing hold. The grip would have broken ribs on most species. Owen felt his ribs creak under the pressure, felt his breath cut short. His vision started to narrow. Sierra watched in horror from the corner. Her children's protector was about to be crushed to death, but Owen Didn't panic, he learned a long time ago. That panic was what killed you, panic. And giving up, he threw his head back. Hard felt it connect with something. That crunched, the enforcer's grip. Loosened just slightly, just enough. Owen dropped his weight suddenly. Slipping down and twisting. Enforcer's arms lost their grip as Owen's sweat-slick skin gave him just enough slippage to escape. He came up. Lowe drove his fist into the Krallick's knee joint. The enforcer stumbled. The first enforcer was coming at him again. Angry now, good. Angry meant sloppy. Krallick swung wide, tried to use his superior reach. Owen ducked under it. Came up inside the guard again, and drove 3 quick punches into the enforcer's throat. The armored plates. They were thinner, designed for flexibility. The Krallick made a choking sound and staggered back. Other workers had gathered at the office entrance. Drawn by the sounds of fighting, they watched in stunned silence. A human, one of the weakest species in the galaxy, was fighting 2 Krallick enforcers, and he wasn't losing. That Owen's shoulder throbbed where the first blow had landed. His ribs ached from being crushed. He could taste blood in his mouth from where he'd bitten his cheek. But he'd grown up in the belt colonies, where the gravity was wrong and the air was thin and everything tried to kill you. Pain was just information. It told you that you were still alive. Second enforcer had recovered from the headbutt. He charged at Owen like a freight train, all mass and momentum. No technique, just raw power. Owen waited until the last second, then sidestepped. The enforcer crashed into the desk, scattering Hollicks's carefully organized items across the floor. Stop this! Hollix shrieked. His colors were flashing. In distress. You're destroying my property. Owen ignored him. The first enforcer was coming again, more cautious. Now, he'd learned that the human was dangerous, but Owen could see the hesitation, could see the confusion. How is this possible? Humans were supposed to be weak. They circled each other. Then enforcer feinted left, then right. Owen didn't take the bait. He'd been in enough fights to recognize the setup. The enforcer committed to a real attack, lunging forward with both hands reaching to grab and crush. Owen dropped in, swept the Kathalix's legs. The heavy gravity wielder was strong and armored, but his center of gravity was high. He went down hard, shaking the floor. Owen was on him immediately, arm locked around the Kathalix's thick neck in a chokehold, not to kill, just to put him to sleep. The enforcer thrashed strong, enough to throw Owen around like a toy. But Owen held on. His muscles screamed. His injured shoulder felt like it was on fire, but he held on. The enforcer's movements got weaker, slower, then stopped. Owen let go and stood up, breathing hard. His shirt was torn. His shoulder was probably dislocated. His ribs were definitely bruised, but he was standing. The second enforcer was getting up from the wreckage of the desk. He looked at his unconscious partner, looked at the human who shouldn't have been able to do that. Made a decision that he ran. The crowd at the entrance parted to let him through. Nobody said anything. The silence in the office was absolute, except for Owen's heavy breathing. Hollix was pressed against the wall, his colors cycling through every shade of fear. You're insane. You attacked my security. That's assault. Station police will arrest you. Owen walked up to the merchant's desk, or what was left of it. He found a terminal, still intact. Despite the chaos, his hands shook slightly as he accessed the cargo Manifests, according to this, Owen said, his voice rough. Every shipment Sierra handled was logged as delivered. Intact, no damage reports, no insurance claims, nothing. He looked at Holix. You were just going to steal her wages and hope nobody checked, Holix said. Nothing. His colors had settled into sickly gray. The crowd at the door was growing. Word spread fast on a space station. A human had just beaten two Cathalix enforcers. People wanted to see if it was true. Owen pulled out his personal communicator and started recording. I'm documenting this for station records. Holix of Centauran Freight Solutions refused to pay wages to a contracted worker. He falsified damage claims. He used hired enforcers to intimidate employees. All of this violates station labor regulations. He turned the device toward Holix. You've got 1 minute to transfer the funds. 2,500 credits total. 1,500 owed plus 1,000 in compensation. I don't have to do what you say, Holix said, but his voice was weak. You're nobody. You're right, I'm nobody. Owen's voice was flat, but this recording, it goes to station administration, and I'll make sure every worker on the station sees it. Your business here is done either way. You can lose your business with your credits intact, or you can lose everything. Your choice. Holix looked around the office at the unconscious enforcer on his floor, at the crowd of workers watching, at the human who just broke in all their assumptions about strength and weakness. He made his choice. His trembling appendages accessed his financial terminal. Moment later, Sierra's communicator chimed. Transfer complete. 2,500 credits. She stared at it like she didn't believe it was real. Owen picked up several data chips from the scattered desk items. I'm taking copies of all your shipment records, just in case you suddenly develop amnesia about this conversation. That's theft, Holix whispered. So what? Owen pocketed the chips and turned to Sierra. Come on, let's get your kids something to eat. Sierra followed him out of the office in a daze. The crowd parted for them, staring at Owen with new eyes. A human, a species they dismissed as weak, as irrelevant, but he'd just done what none of them had dared to do. Outside, Sierra's children rushed to her. They wrapped themselves around her legs, chirping in their high-pitched voices. She held them close, tears streaming down her scaled face. Thank you, she said to Owen. Thank you. I don't know how to repay you. Owen touched his shoulder, gingerly wincing. You don't need to repay me. Just feed your kids. That's enough. One of the hatchlings, the smallest one, looked up at Owen with huge golden eyes. Are you a hero? Owen laughed, then winced because it hurt his ribs. No, Keith. I'm just someone who thinks people should get paid for their work. That's all. But as Sierra led her children toward the station's market district, Owen could feel eyes on him. The workers who'd watched the species, who'd learned something new about humans. Today, maybe he wasn't a hero, but he'd done the right thing, and sometimes that was enough. Owen sat in the small medical bay, watching a medical drone scan his shoulder. The thing beeped disapprovingly at him, dislocated like he'd thought. The drone administered a local pain block, then popped the joint back into place with a mechanical efficiency that made him grit his teeth. You should rest for 3 days, the drone said in its flat, synthesized voice. Your ribs are bruised. Shoulder needs time to heal properly. I'll rest tonight, Owen said. Got work. Tomorrow, the drone beeped again, clearly programmed to disapprove of humans ignoring medical advice, but it let him go. He found Sierra waiting outside the medical bay with her children. They'd been to the market. The hatchlings were eating what looked like roasted vegetables from paper containers, their little jaws working. Happily, they had sauce on their snouts and looked snorts absolutely delighted. You didn't have to wait. Owen said, yes, I did. Sierra stood, and her full height suddenly seemed more impressive than it had before. You were hurt protecting my family, among my people. That creates a debt. There's no debt, I told you, among your people. Perhaps. Sierra's golden eyes were serious. But I am Draken. You shed blood for my children's sake. That means something to us. The smallest hatchling, the one who'd asked if Owen was a hero, tugged on his pant leg. She held up her container of food. Want some? It's really good. Owen smiled. Despite his aching body, he took a small piece of the roasted vegetable and ate it. It was good, spicy but good. Thank you, he said solemnly. The hatchling beamed at him. Over the next few days, Owen learned more about Sierra and her situation than he'd expected. She'd come to Antares 6 months ago after her mate died in a mining accident on her home world. She'd had no family there to help and 4 children to feed. The station had seemed like an opportunity. Work was available for species willing to do dangerous jobs, but the reality had been different. Employers saw Drakens as disposable, strong enough to handle hazardous work, but unimportant enough to cheat without consequences. Sierra had been cheated before. She'd just never been desperate enough to fight back until her children started going hungry. Why didn't you go to station security? Owen asked. They were sitting in one of the station's communal rest areas while Sierra's children played nearby. I did. Twice. Sierra's voice was bitter. They said it was a contract dispute, civil matter. They suggested I hire a legal advocate, and legal advocates cost more than you make in a month. Exactly. She watched her children play, her expression softening. The galaxy is large, Owen, but for people like me, there's very little room in it. Owen had heard similar stories on every station and colony he'd worked on. The system was designed to favor those who already had power. Everyone else just tried to survive. But word of what happened with Holix was spreading. Owen noticed it in the way other workers looked at him, in the conversations that stopped when he entered a room, then resumed with new energy after he passed. Then on his 4th day back at work, Thorian dockworker approached him during lunch break. The insectoid aliens translator clicked as it spoke. You're the one who fought the Cathalics enforcers. It wasn't a question. Owen nodded. Anyway, my employer hasn't paid me in 2 cycles. Says I broke equipment. I didn't, but he has lawyers. And I don't. The Thorian's mandibles clicked nervously. Could you help me? Owen looked at the alien, seeing the same desperation he'd seen in Sierra. Do you have your work logs? Yes. Bring them to me after shift. We'll go through them together. The Thorian's whole body seemed to relax. Thank you. Word spread faster after that. Over the next week, Owen found himself reviewing contracts and work logs for a dozen different workers. Most of the cases were straightforward wage theft. Employers banking on the fact that workers couldn't afford lawyers and didn't understand their rights. Owen helped them file formal complaints with Station administration, he taught them. How to document their work, how to keep records that would stand up to scrutiny. He made himself available in the evenings, going over cases with anyone who asked. He didn't ask for payment, didn't want recognition, he just did it. Because it needed doing, Sierra watched. This with growing respect. She brought him food when he skipped meals to help workers. She made sure he took breaks when his injured shoulder started bothering him, and slowly, carefully, she started telling him about Draken culture. We don't make friends easily, she explained one evening. Our bonds are chosen carefully, but once made, they're absolute. Family is everything to us, blood family or chosen family, it doesn't matter. We protect our own. That's beautiful, Owen said. You protected my children, Sierra continued. You shed blood for them, asked nothing in return. Among my people that makes you wing brother family. Owen was quiet for a moment. I am honored, but I don't know what that means exactly. It means my children are your children, your enemies are my enemies, your safety is my concern. Sierra's eyes were intense. It means I would die before letting harm come to you. That seems like a lot for helping someone get their wages. To you, perhaps it was simple justice. To me, you saved my family from starvation. Sierra reached out and gently touched his hand with one clawed finger. Don't diminish what you did, Owen. It meant everything. The children had started calling him Uncle Owen. They would run to greet him when he came to visit, would show him things they'd found or learned. The youngest, whose name was Pip, had decided Owen was the best thing ever. She followed him around whenever possible, asking endless questions about humans and Earth. Is it true humans can eat almost anything? She asked one day. Pretty much. We're adaptable, even poison things. Well, some poisons make us sick, but we can usually recover from stuff that would kill other species. Owen smiled. Earth was pretty hostile. When we evolved, we learned to survive in all kinds of environments. You're tough, Pip declared, like Drakens, but squishy. Owen laughed. Yeah, I guess that's accurate. He was starting to understand what Sierra meant about chosen family. These kids were growing on him. Their joy, their resilience, their simple trust. They'd been through hell, but they could still laugh and play and see wonder in the world. I could reminded him why he'd left Earth in the first place, why he kept moving from station to station, taking whatever work he could find. He'd been looking for something worth protecting, something worth fighting for. Maybe he'd found it. Station security finally finished their investigation of Holix. The merchant was banned from Anteri 7 and fined heavily for labor violations. Several other workers came forward with complaints once they saw someone had successfully challenged the system. That IT wasn't a revolution, it wasn't even major reform, but it was something. A few dozen workers got their wages, a few corrupt employers learned they couldn't cheat with complete impunity. Small victories, but they mattered. Owen's shoulder healed, his ribs stopped aching, and he kept working, kept helping, kept showing up for people who needed someone in their corner. Sierra gave him a gift on the day station security officially closed Holix's case. It was a small medallion carved from dark stone with a Draken family crest engraved on it. This marks you as wing brother to our clan, she said. Anyone who sees it will know you're protected by Draken honor. Owen held the medallion carefully. It was warm from Sierra's hand, and he could feel the weight of what it represented. Not just a gift, a promise, a bond. "Thank you," he said quietly. Pip hugged his leg. "Now you're really family." "Yeah." Owen thought, "Maybe I am." Owen didn't realize how much the station had changed until someone tried to kill him. That IT happened 3 weeks after the incident. With Holix, Owen was walking back to his quarters after a late shift when 4 figures stepped out of side corridor. They wore unmarked armor and carried weapons that hummed with barely contained energy. Professional killers, not station thugs. Owen Blake, one of them, said through a voice modulator, "You've made certain people very unhappy." Owen's hand moved slowly to his tool belt. Not much there that would help against energy weapons, but he wasn't going to just stand still and die. "I don't suppose we can talk about this." "Nothing personal, just business." The leader raised his weapon. Fire erupted from the corridor behind the killers. Not metaphorical fire, actual flames that burned blue hot and turned the station's recycled air into a scorching wind. The killers scattered, their armor protecting them, but their visibility gone in the sudden inferno. Sierra landed between Owen and the attackers. Her wings spread wide, smoke still curling from her jaws. She was magnificent and terrifying, every inch the apex predator her species had evolved to be. "You will not touch him," she said, her voice resonating with a dysubsonic growl that Owen felt in his chest. Point 2 more Drakens appeared from other corridors, larger than Sierra, with darker scales and old scars marking their bodies. Male Drakens, warriors by the look of them. They moved to flank Sierra, creating a wall of scales and teeth, and barely controlled fire between Owen and the hired killers. "This doesn't concern you," Draken, the leader, said, but his voice had lost its confidence. "Walk away. He is wing brother to my clan," Sierra said. "His blood is our blood. His enemies are our enemies, so this concerns us very much." The largest of the male Drakens, his scales almost black, let smoke drift from his nostrils. "You face 3 Draken warriors. Your weapons might kill one of us before we tear you apart, maybe even 2, but the 3rd will survive and you will not." He showed his teeth. "Choose carefully." The killers looked at each other. This wasn't what they'd signed up for. A lone human, easy target, not a pack of angry dragons willing to die to protect him. They retreated, weapons still raised but backing away slowly. Once they had distance, they ran. Owen let out a breath he didn't know he'd been holding. "Thank you." "Family protects family," Sierra said simply. She turned to the 2 males. "Owen, this is Gresh and Tomer. They're from my home world. When I told them what you did for my children, they wanted to meet you." Gresh, the big black scaled one, studied Owen with intelligent eyes. "You're smaller than I expected." "I get that a lot," Owen said. "But you fight like you're twice your size." "I've heard the stories." Gresh made a rumbling sound that might have been laughter. "The galaxy thinks humans are weak, but we Drakens know better. Strength isn't just about size or natural weapons, it's about will, and you have will, little brother." The word brother startled Owen. He looked at Sierra. "I told them about the wing brother bond," she explained. "They've accepted you into our clan, all of us. You're protected now by more than just my family." Over the next few days, Owen learned what that meant. Other Drakens on the station, workers and traders and ship crews, started acknowledging him. Nod here, a greeting there. Some brought him food from their cultures, gifts of welcome. One elderly Draken female, her scales faded with age, touched his shoulder gently and called him good hatchling, but the protection wasn't just symbolic. Gresh and Tomer started accompanying Owen on his walks around station, not obviously guarding him but always present. Other workers noticed. The ones who'd been emboldened by Owen's example took heart. The ones who'd been exploiting workers grew nervous. That a delegation came to see Owen one evening. 5 different species, all workers, all carrying the same look of desperate hope he'd seen in Syrah's eyes weeks ago. But a Velnari translator stepped forward, her antenna twitching nervously. We've been organizing quietly, talking to other workers about their rights, about standing together. She paused. We'd like your help, not to lead us but to teach us, to help us understand the laws that are supposed to protect us. Owen looked at the small group. They were scared. The system had beaten them down for so long that even the act of asking for help was terrifying, but they were asking. That took courage. I'll help however I can, he said, but you need to understand something. I'm not special. I'm not a hero. I'm just a guy who thinks people deserve to be treated fairly. That makes you special enough, the Velnari said quietly. They met in a storage bay that night, 20 workers at first, then 30, then 50. Owen taught them how to read their contracts, how to identify wage theft, how to document safety violations. He showed them the station regulations that most employers hoped they'd never read. Syrah helped translate his explanations for species whose communication styles didn't match human speech patterns. Gresh and Tomer stood watch, making sure no one interrupted who shouldn't be there. Young Pyloshian named Re asked the question they were all thinking. Why do you do this? You're not one of us. You're human. Your species could work anywhere, do anything. Why help us? Owen thought about that. Because I've been where you are. Maybe not exactly, but close enough. I grew up on a belt colony where the company owned everything and we owned nothing. I watched my parents work themselves to death for wages that barely kept us fed. I watched the system grind people down until they couldn't fight anymore. He looked around at all the faces, all the species, all the hope and fear mixed together. I couldn't help my parents, but maybe I can help you. And maybe that matters. The workers were quiet for a moment, then Re said, it matters. The movement grew slowly. Workers started refusing to accept illegal conditions. They filed formal complaints when they were cheated. They stood together when employers tried to single out troublemakers. It wasn't always successful. Some workers were fired, some were threatened. But they kept pushing, kept demanding the basic rights that were supposed to be guaranteed by station law. And when employers pushed back with violence, they found themselves facing more than just individual workers. They found Drakens who'd sworn to protect a human. They found workers of a dozen species who'd learned that standing together meant they couldn't be broken as easily. Station administration couldn't ignore it anymore. The complaints were piling up. The conflicts were becoming public. The news feeds were starting to notice that something was changing on Antares 7. Owen tried to stay out of the spotlight. He didn't want to be a figurehead or a symbol. He just wanted to help people. But Syrah understood what he was too humble to see. You changed something here, she told him one evening. They were watching her children play in one of the station's public Gardens, a rare luxury that Sierra could now afford with a better job, not just for my family, for hundreds of families, Owen said. I just showed people they had rights, Owen said. No, Sierra shook her head. You showed them that someone cared, that someone would stand with them even when it was dangerous. That's what changed everything. Pip ran over and climbed onto Owen's lap, her small claws careful not to scratch him. Uncle Owen T said, humans are the weakest species, but you're not weak, you're the strongest person I know. Owen hugged the small Draken gently. Strength comes in lots of forms, Pip. Sometimes the strongest thing you can do is care about someone else more than you care about yourself. Like you cared about us, Pip said. Yeah, like that. Sierra watched them together, her eyes soft. The galaxy is learning about humans, not through war or conquest, through this, through compassion. She paused. That might be more dangerous to the old order than any weapon. Owen didn't know about that. He just knew that Pip felt safe in his arms, that Sierra's children were healthy and fed, that workers were standing up for themselves, that maybe, just maybe, a small corner of the galaxy was a little bit better than it had been before. That was enough. That would always be enough. The Merchants Guild called an emergency meeting. 37 business owners gathered in a private conference room on the upper levels of Antares 7, where the air was cleaner and the lighting was better, and workers weren't allowed unless they were serving drinks. A Voltorian shipping magnate stood at the head of the table. His name was Drex, and he'd lost 3 cargo contracts in the past month because his workers had walked out over safety violations. This human is destroying our profit margins. It's not just him, a Centauran trader added. It's what he represents. Workers who think they deserve fair treatment, who think they can challenge us. We pay good money for those labor contracts, Drex continued. Below minimum wage was the entire point. Now station administration is actually enforcing regulations. Do you know how much compliance costs? A Relaxian banker tapped her financial pad. Collective losses across this guild are estimated at 18 million credits this quarter, all because one human decided to play hero. The hired contractors failed, someone else noted. The Drakens are protecting him now. Then we go bigger, Drex said. We have resources, we have connections. One human and a handful of lizards can't stop all of us. They were wrong about that. Owen got the warning from an unlikely source. A young Voltorian accountant who worked for Drex approached him at the docking bay, looking terrified. They're planning something, the accountant whispered. The guild, they want you gone, not just fired. Gone? How gone? Owen asked, though he already knew. Very gone. They're hiring off-world specialists, military contractors, not just station enforcers. The accountant's voice shook. I don't agree with what they're doing. My wages were stolen too before you helped us organize, but I can't speak out openly. I have family. They destroy us. I understand, Owen said. Thank you for the warning. Be careful, the accountant said, then disappeared into the crowd before anyone could see them talking. Owen told Sierra that evening. Her reaction was immediate and fierce. We leave tonight. I take my children and we go somewhere else. You come with us. Her eyes flashed gold in the dim lighting. Your life is worth more than the station. Where do we go? Owen asked gently. This isn't just About Antares 7, this is about a system that treats workers like disposable resources. Running doesn't fix that. Then we fight. Gresh and Tomer will help other Drakons too. We're warriors, let them send their contractors. Owen shook his head. Violence is what they want. It gives them justification to crack down hard, to declare the worker movement security threat. We can't win that way. So what do? Sierra's voice was anguished. Let them kill you. No, we go public, completely public. Owen pulled out his communicator. We tell everyone exactly what's happening. We make it impossible for them to act quietly. Over the next 12 hours, Owen and the worker organizers compiled everything, every wage theft complaint, every safety violation, every contract that violated station law. They included personal testimonies from workers across multiple species. They documented threats, intimidation, and the hired killers who tried to murder Owen, and they released it all, not just the station administration, but to every news service, every social feed, every communication channel they could access. They titled it simply, "The Real Cost of Cheap Labor on Antares 7. The response was immediate and overwhelming. News services across 3 sectors picked up the story. The image of a human worker standing up to corporate exploitation resonated with audiences who'd seen similar abuses on their own stations and colonies. The fact that he'd nearly been killed for it made the story even more compelling. Station administration was flooded with inquiries. Tourist shuttles started canceling docking reservations. Trade partners began demanding assurances about ethical labor practices. The economic pressure was enormous and immediate. The Merchants Guild found themselves in an impossible position if they moved against Owen. Now, with every eye on the station, they confirmed everything in the report, but if they did nothing, the reforms would continue. Station Administrator Qualies, a cautious bureaucrat who'd avoided the labor disputes for months, finally called a public hearing. Every party would present their case. Proceedings would be broadcast live. Owen stood before a packed hearing room, workers filling every available space. Sierra and her children sat in the front row. Gresh and Tomer flanked the doorways, their presence a clear message. I'm not a politician, Owen began. I'm not a revolutionary. I'm a cargo handler who thinks people should get paid for their work and not be poisoned by unsafe conditions. Apparently, that's a radical position. He went through the evidence methodically, showed the documented wage theft, the safety violations that had killed or injured workers, the contracts that violated basic station law. He presented testimonies from dozens of workers, their voices finally heard. After years of silence, Drek stood to rebut, his prepared speech full of talk about economic realities and competitive markets. But he couldn't explain away the dead workers, couldn't justify paying less than minimum wage when station law clearly required it, couldn't explain why he'd hired killers to silence a cargo handler. The hearing lasted 6 hours. By the end, public opinion had crystallized. The Merchants Guild had been caught, exposed, and they had no defense that didn't make them look worse. Administrator Qualies announced immediate reforms, full enforcement of labor laws, an independent oversight committee with worker representatives, mandatory safety audits, and a complete investigation into corporate misconduct with criminal Charges for the worst offenders. It wasn't everything the workers wanted. It wasn't a revolution. But it was something real, something enforceable, something that would make life better. For thousands of people, Owen walked out of the hearing room exhausted. His shoulder was aching again, stress bringing back the old injury, but he felt lighter somehow. They'd done it. They'd actually done it. Sierra and her children were waiting for him. Pip launched herself at him, and he caught her carefully, mindful of her small claws. "We won," she chirped. "Uncle Owen, we won." "We did," Owen agreed. "All of us together," the workers who'd filled the hearing room crowded around, wanting to thank him, to celebrate, to share this moment. Owen tried to deflect the attention, but they wouldn't let him. For them, he was a symbol, the human who'd stood up when no one else would. Out, a human journalist pushed through the crowd, recording device active. "Owen Blake, you've become face of worker rights reform on Antares 7. How does that feel?" "Uncomfortable," Owen said honestly. "I didn't do this for recognition. I did it because it needed doing." "What's next for you?" That the journalist pressed. "Will you continue this work on other stations?" Owen hadn't thought that far ahead. He looked at Sierra, at her children, at the workers around him. "I don't know, but wherever I go, if I see people being exploited, I'll probably do something about it. It's just who I am." "That's what makes you dangerous," Sierra said quietly, a smile on her scaled face. "You can't ignore injustice. It's both your greatest strength and your greatest vulnerability." "Probably," Owen agreed. Gresh appeared beside him, massive and protective. "The guild won't give up completely. They'll adapt, find new ways to exploit, but they'll think twice before being so blatant. And workers will remember they can fight back. Small victories," Owen said. "Small victories change into big ones," Tomer rumbled. "Rivers start as small streams." Celebration moved to one of the station's larger communal areas. Workers from dozens of species gathered, sharing food and stories. Owen found himself pass from group to group, each one wanting to shake his hand or touch shoulder or share their gratitude in whatever way their culture expressed. It was overwhelming and humbling and exhausting all at once. Late that night, when the crowds had thinned, Owen sat with Sierra on an observation deck, watching ships come and go through the station's docking arrays. "You changed my life," Sierra said softly. "My children's lives, hundreds of lives. You would have found a way," Owen replied. "You're strong. You would have survived." "Survived, yes, but there's a difference between surviving and living." She looked at him. "You gave us the chance to actually live, to have hope. That's not a small thing. It shouldn't be special," Owen said. "Everyone deserves that chance, but they don't get it, not without people like you who fight for it." Sierra touched his hand. "Thank you, wing brother, for everything." Owen squeezed her hand gently. "Thank you for trusting me, for letting me be part of your family." They sat in comfortable silence, watching the stars. Somewhere out there, other stations had similar problems. Other workers were being exploited, but tonight on Antares 7, things were a little bit better. And sometimes that was enough. 0.3 months after the hearing, Antares 7 looked different, not physically but in ways that mattered more. Workers walked with their heads higher. Safety equipment that had been too expensive was now standard. Wage theft complaints actually got investigated and resolved. Owen still worked the cargo bay, still loaded freight containers and hauled supplies, but now other workers joined him on breaks, asking questions, sharing concerns, treating him like a trusted friend instead of an outsider. The oversight committee was functioning, slowly but steadily improving. Conditions, not perfect, never perfect, but better and better was worth fighting for. Sierra had been promoted to cargo supervisor, a position she'd earned through skill and dedication. Her children were thriving. The youngest 3 attended the station school, learning multiple languages and making friends across species. Pip had announced she wanted to be a worker, advocate when she grew up, just like Uncle Owen. Owen had tried to dissuade her. It's not an easy path. Good things aren't supposed to be easy, Pip had replied, with the absolute certainty of youth. You taught me that. He couldn't argue with that logic. That a human transport ship docked one afternoon, bringing fresh crew rotations and supplies from Earth's colonies. Owen was processing their cargo manifest when the captain approached him. The woman was older, weathered by years of space travel, with sharp eyes that missed nothing. You're Owen Blake, she said, not a question. Yes, ma'am, I've heard about you. Whole sector has. She handed him a data pad. I have a message from the Colonial Workers Union. They want to know if you'd be interested in consulting work, helping workers on other stations, organize, teaching them what you've learned here. Owen looked at the data pad. The offer was generous, real money, travel, a chance to spread the reforms beyond Antares 7. It was everything he'd been working toward, offered on a silver platter. Can I think about it? He asked. The captain smiled. Take your time. Will be docked for 3 days. But, Owen, what you did here matters a lot. Of people want to replicate it. You can help millions of workers across human space and beyond. After she left, Owen sat with the data pad, reading through the proposal. It was tempting, but it also meant leaving Sierra and her children, leaving the community he'd helped build, leaving the small victories he could see every day. He went to Sierra that evening and showed her the offer. She read it carefully, her expression unreadable. Then she looked at him with those golden eyes that had learned to read him so well. What do you want to do? I don't know, Owen admitted. Part of me wants to help more people, but part of me doesn't want to leave. This is home now, your family. We are family, Sierra agreed, which means we want what's best for you, even if it's hard. For us, that's not helpful, Owen said. But he was smiling. Pip, who'd been listening from the doorway, came into the room. Are you leaving, Uncle Owen? Maybe, he said honestly. They want me to help workers on other stations, like you helped us. Yes. Pip was quiet for a moment, her young face serious. Then she climbed onto his lap, something she was getting almost too big for. Mom says family means wanting the best for each other, even when it's sad. Very wise, Owen said, his throat tight. So if you need to go help other people, we understand, but you have to promise to come back and visit a lot. Owen hugged her gently. I promise. Sierra touched his shoulder. You have 3 days to decide. Think carefully, wing brother. This is your choice, and we'll support whatever you decide. Owen spent those 3 days talking to workers, to the oversight committee, to the people who'd become his community. They all said the same thing in different ways. He'd given them the tools to continue the work. They could maintain the reforms, could keep pushing for better conditions. They didn't need him to hold their hands anymore. It was both flattering and humbling. He'd succeeded well enough that he was no longer essential. That was exactly how it should be. On the last day, he sat with the worker organizers in their usual meeting space. The young Palaxian who'd asked him why he helped, spoke for the group. "We want you to go," said, "not because we don't value you, but because we do. You showed us how to fight for ourselves. Now you can show others. That's more important than staying here where things are already improving. Besides, a Thorian worker added, "You've trained half of us in labor law and organizing tactics. We're not helpless anymore. That's what you gave us." Owen looked around at the faces, all different species, all united by shared struggle and shared victory. "You're sure?" "We're sure," said. "Go teach the galaxy what you taught us, that workers deserve dignity, that standing together means you can't be broken, that compassion is strength, not weakness. When you put that way," Owen said, "how can I refuse?" He accepted the Colonial Workers' Union's offer the next morning. The contract was for 1 year, consulting and training across 6 different stations. After that, he could renew or return to Antares 7, flexibility built in, because they understood he had family here. The send-off was larger than Owen expected. Hundreds of workers gathered at the docking bay, representing dozens of species, all there to say goodbye to the human who'd stood up for them. Sierra and her children were at the front of the crowd. The kids were trying to be brave, but their eyes were wet with tears. Even the older ones, who usually try to seem tough, were openly crying. Owen knelt down to their level. "This isn't goodbye forever. I'll be back, I promise. And I'll send messages every week. You won't get rid of me that easily. You better come back," Pip said fiercely. "Your family doesn't just leave. Family does what's necessary," Owen corrected gently, "and sometimes it means being apart for a while so you can help more people. But the bond doesn't break, understand?" She nodded, then threw her arms around his neck. Her siblings joined in, creating a mass of small Drakens and one human, all holding each other tight. Sierra waited until the children stepped back, then pulled Owen into a crushing hug. Her strength could have broken his ribs, but she was careful, always careful with him. "Come back to us," she whispered. "Please, always," Owen promised. "You're my family. I'll always come back." He boarded the transport ship with his few belongings and the Draken family medallion Sierra had given him months ago. As the ship prepared to depart, he watched through the viewport as the crowd waved, as Sierra held her children, as the community he'd helped build send him off to help others. The captain joined him at the viewport, having second thoughts. "No," Owen said, "just remembering why this matters." "And why does it matter?" Owen touched the medallion around his neck. "Because everyone deserves what Sierra and her children have now: safety, dignity, a fair chance at a good life. That shouldn't be revolutionary, but if it is, then I guess I'm a revolutionary." The captain laughed. "The galaxy isn't ready for more humans like you." "Good," Owen said. "Maybe that means we'll actually change things." The ship pulled away from Antares 7, carrying Owen toward new stations, new workers, new battles for basic fairness. He missed Sierra and the kids. He missed the community he'd helped build, but he carried them with him in the lessons they'd taught him. That compassion was strength that standing up for others, mattered that small victories accumulated into real change, that family was defined by choice and commitment, not by blood or species. Galaxy was vast and injustice was everywhere, but so was hope, so was the potential for change, and wherever went, he'd carry that potential with him. That he'd been asked once why he helped people who weren't as kind, who weren't human. The answer had seemed obvious then and seemed even more obvious now, because they were people, because they deserved help, because it was right. That was all the reason he needed. That would always be all the reason he needed. As the stars stretched past the viewport and the ship jumped to faster than light travel, Owen Blake allowed himself a small smile. He'd started this journey to try to help one desperate mother get her wages. He'd ended up with a family, a movement, and a purpose that would carry him across the stars. Not bad for a cargo handler from Earth's belt colonies, not bad at all. The galaxy was learning about humanity, not through conquest or technology or military might, through stubborn, compassionate humans who refused to accept that injustice was inevitable, who stood up, who fought back, who protected those who couldn't protect themselves. That it was slower than war, quieter than revolution, but it was sustainable. It was real, and it was spreading one station at a time, one worker at a time, one human at a time. Owen Blake was just one human, but he'd proven that one human acting with courage and compassion could change the world, or at least change a small corner of it, and sometimes a small corner was enough to start with. The future was uncertain, the work was hard, but Owen had learned something important on Antares 7. He'd learned that he wasn't alone, that family came in unexpected forms, that standing together meant you were stronger than any oppressor. The ship carried him toward new challenges, new opportunities to help, new families to find and protect, and somewhere behind him, on a station that was just a little bit better than it had been before, a Draken mother and her children looked up at the stars and knew that their winged brother would return, because family always came home, always.